Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RealClearPolitics Takeaway for Thursday, April 8th. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RCP.
I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief.
Carl, it's the best 4 days of the year start today. Do you know why that is?
You know, you're a golf fan, so I'm wondering if there's a golf tournament somewhere in a state that we're not allowed to name anymore.
Not just any golf tournament, the golf tournament. This is it. It's the big one. So, yes, I'm going to be spending a lot of time over the next 4 days watching the Masters.
Tom,
we shall see.
Have you ever been fitted for a green jacket? I mean, just as a fanboy, because I know you're a good athlete, but probably not a good enough golfer to win the Masters.
I've never actually played Augusta. I've never visited Augusta to see the Masters live. So those are still on my bucket list.
I was going to say
52 last week. So
well, and I've not been to the Kentucky Derby. We have things we need to do in the next year, Tom.
It's our New Year's resolutions 4 months late.
Yeah, well, our other news resolution was to each lose 10 pounds. Look where that got us.
All right, Carl, let's get to politics. We've got Joe Manchin, who is starting to flex his Senate muscles a bit. He came out yesterday and said he is opposed to any changes to the filibuster. The day before that, he said he would not go for the 28% on the corporate tax hike that Biden is proposing. He'd be open to something less. And he has strongly said that anything that passes, he said this before, but that goes through the Senate, he wants to be bipartisan. He wants Republicans to be part of the legislative process. Joe Mann is at the moment a one-man wrecking crew to Biden's agenda. How does the Biden administration and his fellow Senate Democrats deal with that?
I wouldn't look at it quite that way. Joe Biden is being pushed along by his party. They feel that they have this majority in both houses. They may not have it long. They want to get things done. Joe Manchin is actually holding Joe Biden to his own word. He's reminding of Biden of what he said he'd do. To have some of this major legislation, and we've had it the last 3 administrations, only one party supporting it. It's not good for the country. It doesn't breed confidence in those policies among the people who didn't vote Democratic in the last election, the people Biden said he would listen to, just as he listened to the people who voted for him. So actually, I was one of those people who thought that it would help Biden if both Georgia's seats did not go Democratic in the runoff. That didn't happen. But so now Joe Manchin's filling that role somewhat. He's and the Democrats understand he's in a state that is now solidly Republican. It wasn't when Joe Manchin went into public office. It was a swing state. It was a Democratic state when I was a kid. Now it's a Republican state, and he can't go along with the far left agenda. They know that. But I also wonder if there's a way, and Joe Manchin is trying to get these two. He's trying to get Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden to negotiate some of these issues and to come up with a compromise that each party could live with so you could get votes on both sides. I actually think that would be good for the country. I just don't know if it's possible anymore.
I don't think it is. I mean, the stories this week were, Chuck Schumer, the Senate parliamentarian, ruled that Democrats could use reconciliation a second time to pass Biden's $2 trillion infrastructure plan. And then there was another story suggesting that Schumer was looking at trying to use reconciliation to get an immigration bill through the Senate, and he seems to be, moving full steam ahead with the idea that they'll pass whatever they can pass, however they can pass it through the Senate with or without Republicans. So,
but wait a minute. But you'd need Joe Manchin. It's 50.
Joe Manchin.
It's 50-50, and so at some point these policies, Manchin is he's about spending money. He's with this so far. But when these comes to some of these policy issues, he may not be with them. He is a truly moderate guy. He's a centrist. There's 3 or 4 of them left in the whole United States Senate, and he's the most visible.
Which makes him the skunk at the garden party of the Democrats, the Pepe Le Pew, if you will.
Yeah, another word you can't use, another name you can't use anymore.
All right, Carl, quickly, gun control, another issue on the news today. Joe Biden unveiling a host of executive orders on guns. Again, we've had some mass shootings in the past couple of weeks in Atlanta and Colorado. We had another one last night, apparently in South Carolina. But we never seem to get any gun. There never seems to be the ability to pass gun control through the legislature. And so it always ends up, and Trump did this with banning bump stocks after the Las Vegas shooting, Biden again turning to his pen to try and get something done.
Yeah, and there's not much a president can do, but Biden has a pretty interesting agenda. I mean, he's nominated later today. He'll nominate a new head of the ATF, of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. It's a guy who was an agent in that agency. He's very well respected. He's been involved in gun control groups in the private sector in the last few years. That's going to be a popular choice, I think, with gun control people. The president wants to restrict these braces that stabilize a handgun. He's going to direct the Justice Department to come up with a red flag, sort of model legislation for red flags that really is aimed at getting states, state legislation, because that's where that has to be done in state courts. And he wants to tighten, spend some more money on tracking firearms. He wants to do what he can do with the executive branch, and I don't think he wants to waste a lot of time trying to get major legislation through. And I'm not even sure what it would do at this point. We're what was it, 2013? So 8 years ago today, when Joe Biden was vice president, Barack Obama went up to Hartford, to Connecticut, and he met with parents from Sandy Hook. And it was his most impassioned speech on gun control, and one of his most impassioned speeches he gave as president. But not much legislation happened. So I think this president, he's learned from that. And he's decided, I'll do what I can do.
You look at, Carl, you mentioned Sandy Hook. We looked at Colorado, Atlanta. The mental health component of this is one that it baffles me, because it seems like it never gets the attention that it deserves. It never gets the kind of focus that I could, because that's one thing that a lot, if not all, of these mass shootings have in common.
Well, I think that's right. Look, it's not a mentally healthy person doesn't get a gun and go shoot strangers. So you know that. It doesn't mean they're not evil acts. It doesn't mean they're not crimes. But there's a mental health component in every one of these. I wrote about that in my morning newsletter today. You can find it on our site on the left-hand column. Carl Cannon's AM Note, I think we call it, if you don't subscribe. And I was a little preachy, but Tom, this is, if we were serious in this country about gun control, we'd put everything on the table. The Second Amendment, sure. First Amendment, too. And how video games and violent Hollywood fare, should these be regulated? There was a movement to do that back when Clinton was president. Should we do other things? Should the media voluntarily report on these different? And the thing you mentioned, when did this country think it was? How could it be a good idea to empty the mental hospitals? And basically, when people are proved that they're violent or troubled and can't function, we put them in prison or we put them on the streets. I mean, that's not going to end well. And you have mass alienation and mental health and depression and problems people have. We should be spending a lot of money on this. If we can throw trillions of dollars at this pandemic, we can undertake this. We could spend more. And I don't mean to sound like a great society person. Spending money doesn't solve every problem, but we cut out rehabilitation programs in federal prisons. Why? So I think I wrote, in a functioning democracy, all these ideas would be on the table, and you might get a spirit of compromise. If some people would give, one party would give here and the other party would give there, maybe you could have a more holistic approach to this, because what we're doing now isn't working.
Maybe the Senate can take a couple $100 billion and call it infrastructure and jam it in that bill, Carl. Seems like everything else is infrastructure these days. All right, we will leave it there. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics.
And I'm big spending Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief of Real Clear Politics. This has been the RCP Takeaway for Thursday, April 8th, 2021.